What's up, my friends, and welcome into this week's edition of the Run and Die Podcast. Thanks so much for hanging out with us once again. Tyler Zulli and Frank Klose back with you for another week of Phillies baseball, and it seems like now we're starting to say the same thing, kind of like we did at the beginning of the year, where things were bad. Now things continue to be in a much better place for this Phillies baseball team over the last couple of weeks, and their continued success has sprayed into this week. An opportunity today to win the series against the Cincinnati Reds, which would then mark what, their sixth consecutive series victory.
It's pretty good.
This is a team that's starting to play some really, really good baseball, and whether it's the change of manager, whether it's your lefties really rolling, whether it's some auxiliary pieces starting to kind of come into form, and of course the starting pitching, a lot of things are going right for the Phillies over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, they sure are. Hey, they go for number 7 today against in the afternoon, early game. So hopefully you got a chance to hear this before the game. But they're going for yet another series victory against Cincinnati. And although last night they didn't take that game, they looked a little lifeless at the plate. Overall, things look pretty good.
Yeah, I thought Chase Burns was good. I would tip my cap to him. I think he pitched because I think the last time the Phillies faced him, he was pretty good as well. It just happened to be the night that Zack Wheeler threw the one hitter against them, and Wheeler was just better. But Burns always has been a guy, young guy. You know, he's worked through some things his rookie year. The stuff it's beyond legit. He was the number 2 pick in the draft for a reason. His stuff is awesome, and I think really honestly, the NL Central has a handful of young starters. Now, Skeens is the established one, of course. Mizorowski's starting to be that guy now. Burns kind of following suit. The NL Central has a lot of really good young arms that I think are starting to kind of all ascend at one time.
Yeah, they really do. And if you've looked at the standings, the NL Central was doing pretty well compared to a lot of other divisions. I think I have to double check. I haven't seen how Pittsburgh did since the Phillies played them, but every team was above 500 at one point,
including the Cardinals, who you and I talked about. Like this might not be a very good baseball team. They're playing some decent baseball.
They've woken up.
All right, so let's get to the Phillies. Obviously, like you said, a 4-1 loss yesterday. I thought Luzardo was decent. The 2 sac flies, probably the best result of bases loaded, nobody out. And, obviously giving up no runs would be the best result, but giving up just 2 sacrifice flies, settling down, getting the 6 innings of 2 earned runs, keeping the Phillies in the game. I thought Luzardo was decent yesterday. As you said, the bats really didn't materialize very much. The one thing, not that we're going to start with this, but the one thing I do think that may be becoming concerning, Tanner Banks has not been very good this year.
Yeah, that's true. I thought he turned it around when the mustache came off for a while there, but then he's it's funny. Some of those relievers on off. He might be one of those relievers that every other year seems to be somebody different.
So let's get into the bigger topics of today. And obviously, as we said at the beginning of the show, the Phillies have had success. Yes, they lost yesterday, but an opportunity to win a 7th consecutive series since Don Mattingly has taken over. And if they win today, they will be 17-5 under Don Mattingly. And Frank, I went and pulled some of the numbers just to give you an idea of how good this team has been since the managerial change. 16-5 under Mattingly. 103 runs scored are the 3rd most in baseball. Their team average is 6th best. Their 35 run differential. And by the way, their 35 run differential with a 12-1 loss in there. So it could have been even higher if they didn't lose that such a lopsided game. And then, of course, really the big reason as to why they've been as good as they've been, their pitching's been excellent. A 3.02 team ERA over that stretch and a 2.88 starter ERA over that stretch. Kind of coincides with Zack Wheeler's return. Wheeler and Christopher Sanchez in their 9 starts combined are 6-0 themselves. The Phillies have won all 9 of those starts since Wheeler has returned. Andrew Painter looked decent. We'll get into him a little bit. Luzardo settled in, as we talked about last night. Nola had that one bad start against the A's that was that 12-1 loss. But overall, I mean, this starting pitching group has been sensational since Zack Wheeler has returned.
Yeah, even Andrew Painter picking it up a little bit his last couple starts. I'm sure we'll get to talk about him in depth a little bit, but yeah, the only one concern right now is Nola. Like, you don't know which Nola you're going to get each day, and I think we need to see him show up for this next start because you feel pretty good about pretty much everybody else day to day, but Nola, it seems like the question mark.
Yeah, it's been. I think that there is a we talked before about how much does a managerial change impact the team, and I think it certainly did in the sense that Bryce Harper basically said, "Well, that weight's off our shoulders now. We were playing so poorly, we were to the point we expected Rob Thompson to get fired." I still don't know how I feel about that comment,
Mm.
but I get what he's trying to say. That weight is lifted off of their shoulders. I think the positive inverse can also be true. When Zack Wheeler returns, having Zack Wheeler in your clubhouse, in your pitching scouting meetings, in your bullpen sessions, and especially around your young starter, Andrew Painter, like there has to be some sort of all right, we made it. And not only did we make it to Wheeler coming back, but Wheeler's pitching so well, all the rest of us are elevating our game. I do have to think there's a little bit behind that the addition of Zack Wheeler, it's not by circumstance that this rotation has started pitching as well as it has when Wheeler returned to the fold.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like I am a big supporter of recognizing the human part of the game. I mean, there's kind of a return to normalcy when Zach Wheeler shows up and is there taking the ball every fifth day. Everybody else just feels calm, I would imagine, right? So, not that Sanchez couldn't be an ace on his own, but who knows? Maybe the Luzardos of the world, maybe they felt like they had to do more because Zach Wheeler's not around, and they see Taiwan Walker getting blown up start after start. So, just the sense of, oh yeah, we are back. Not just that Zach is back, we are back.
Well, and I think you're right. Like Sanchez is the number one on, right? There's 29 other teams in the league. Is it fair to say he's the number one on 23 of them?
I'd even give it a couple more than that. I mean, maybe you could argue Skeens is the number
Right.
one in Pittsburgh, but I'm trying to, I can't confidently say maybe a healthy Scooble,
Sure.
but you don't have a
Maybe a
healthy Scooble.
Yamamoto gets put into that conversation, but maybe I undersold him. But my point is, like, you have 29 other teams, and the guy is the bona fide ace of a majority of them. So there was never any concern for me there. But I do get your point of everybody else had to step up one spot. And I wonder if there is a little bit of a added, I don't want to call it an added pressure, an added weight, but I do think that having that veteran presence, because listen, if you get Paul Skeens back, you get Paul Skeens. You know what I mean? Like that's a young guy, but he's so good. He's the top of your rotation. But having somebody who's as good as Zack Wheeler has been for really the last 6 seasons now, basically his entire time with the Phillies, having him back, a veteran, a calm guy, he's not an emotional guy. He's pretty in check. Having him back in the fold, leading your staff, and not just leading your staff by morality standpoint, but leading your staff on the field. I mean, you talk about him and Sanchez at the top since they've returned. When those two guys are healthy and pitching to this form, I think I would take them as the best 1-2 punch in all of baseball.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one there. I mean, I don't think anybody else has anything even close. I mean, Detroit was trying, that didn't work out. But yeah, no, I mean that sets the tone for everything. I mean, I don't care if I don't, then we don't worry about the bats as much. Where the bats, on a night like last night, we might have overthought it, and it carries into the next day. Maybe that led to some of the young guys pressing a little bit more, feeling like they had to do too much. So yeah, the tone that it sets just trickles down, and it just makes this team seem like a completely different team.
So let's talk about the young guy, Andrew Painter, who I think probably has the most to gain with Zack Wheeler returning, just having a mentor, if you will. Having somebody in the fold that can work him through some things. And his last 2 starts have been pretty good. The start against Boston was solid. The start last night, or excuse me, was it 2 nights ago, against the Reds, where he ended up pitching, only throwing 70 pitches, but overall a really good, really productive start. Before we kind of dive into what has kind of changed for him, I did want to get your thoughts on him being removed from the game at such a limited pitch count in that last start that he made.
I'm okay with it. I mean, the first of the 2 starts he made most recently, he went 5 innings and got pulled out pretty early too. I think that one he needed to go out with a high note. I feel like that if he left him in too long and he gives up a couple runs, it kind of sullies what's happening there. I think that this kind of true the last one as well. That Yeah, he'd given up 2 runs, but had gone 6. Like, that was his longest start. I feel like that since he reached that achievement, by the way, who goes more than six innings these days anyway? I mean, it's very, very rare, right? I mean, right now
Zach Wheeler.
yeah, right. In this game, at this age, 6 innings is a lot. Now, we can debate that all day, of course, too. But no, I thought it was good. I think you needed him to build some momentum here. You don't want him to be in a little bit too long, even if he gives up a run or two. In fact, his first start, I thought he was left in too long. They left him in to give up the run, right? When he made his major league debut. I feel like that, let him go out on the high note, take the victory, on to the next day. And let's not forget too that he's coming off Tommy John surgery. You kind of knew going into the season that you wanted to limit his innings to a certain extent. I'm very opposed to what the Nationals did several years ago with Steven Strasburg, where you get to the playoffs and all of a sudden your best pitcher's not on
Sure.
not on the roster because he hit his innings limit. I'd rather see them take it easy now and then try to stretch him out for the whole season. If indeed they're trying to cut back on his innings, and yeah, number of pitches matter. I know people worry about up and down now as much as the pitch count, but yeah, I'm all for it. Save some of that for later.
Yeah, I think I called it a momentary annoyance for the fans for a long-term success plan. I get it. I think there's still a portion of baseball fans that said I grew up on Nolan Ryan and Roger Clemens and Pedro Martinez and maybe even an older generation that said I grew up on Bob Gibson, and these guys took the ball every fourth day and didn't leave the mound. And I know there's something to a bulldog workhorse mentality type of pitcher. I think that there are still some of those guys in baseball. I've said for a really long time, the shining example of that over the last 10 years was Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer was get off my mound. I want the ball. You're not taking it from me unless I stink today. And that there's merit to that. But I also think on the other end of it, this wasn't we're babying Andrew Painter. Like, if they had pulled him after 4, you'd go, yeah, that's a little strange. I think even honestly, if they had pulled him after 5, we'd have been a little bit frustrated with it. But he did go 6 complete innings. 18 of 27 outs has always kind of been the benchmark for starters. Now it's kind of the threshold, even more so, to say that was a good start. And to me, I agree with you in the sense that, things have been tumultuous for Andrew Painter throughout the season. There's been times where he has flat out not looked good. That was a good start, and he settled in nicely and was able to get you through 6. And I think getting him out in that spot, especially with the fact that your bullpen really wasn't taxed this weekend because Wheeler went 7 1/3, or was it 7 1/3, right? And Sanchez went complete game. And so you didn't really use your bullpen all that much this weekend. I think it was a good spot to let Andrew Painter leave on a high note.
I think fans might also be affected by the Brad Keller outing that night. Boom, all
Understood.
of a sudden, solo homer, then the game's tied. He doesn't get a win. So I can see why that might annoy some people, but they did come and get the win. And of course, Alvarado also gave up a run, but you can't there's separate issues in my opinion, right? So I think that yeah, it's Keller's frustrating, by the way. I will say, I will add that this season, but I thought he was going to be better. But you have to expect that the guys behind him are going to do their jobs as well.
Yeah, I think with Keller, to me, the last couple of weeks, he's really come down to his fastball location's been really poor. Because I thought his slider has been good. I thought the changeup's been okay. But it really, to me, has come down to fastball location has just been basically non-existent. There was a couple of appearances where he picked up saves and he wasn't spotting it, and he was erratic and he was throwing it out of the zone. And then there was that outing last night or 2 nights ago where the fastball was too much in the zone, and neither of those things are playable. So I think if he figures out the fastball location, I think he still has a chance to be okay. Because if you look at all the underlying metrics and stuff like that, his xFIP is better than his actual numbers, and his hard hit percentages aren't terrible. And you can look at the metrics and say there's a reason to think maybe he bounces back. Do I expect him at this point? Do I expect him to be the guy he was in Chicago last year? Probably not. but I do think he can be better than he's been if that fastball location finds its spot again.
And quite frankly, I think there's enough time for that. So maybe get him out of some of those higher leverage spots. I think Kirkering maybe has earned a look a little bit later in the game.
Sure. I think
He's had a
pitched
really
well
good
this year.
He's had a good season, and I like him better when there's no runners on base. But still, give Kirkering that clean inning instead. Maybe you don't have that problem.
So let's get back to Andrew Painter for just a second. The last 2 starts have been promising. And I think the one thing I was really happy with the other night was he gives up those 2 runs early and settles in. And he ends up giving you the 6 good innings. And it was, 4 straight shutout innings after giving up the 2 runs. What have you seen from Painter over the last couple of starts that has been more encouraging than maybe what we saw in that middle pocket of the early season?
Just poise. I think he's trusting himself more. I think and by the way, he's worked with 3 different catchers this year, which is probably something that maybe they should take a look at. I think he needs a little bit more consistency with who is behind the plate, so that you can predict a little bit more, who you're throwing to and your comfort level. But I honestly think it was a matter of poise. I think he's trusting himself a little bit more. Maybe he was getting a little tentative when he finally gave up some runs. I mean, let's face it, this guy blew through the minor league system. Nobody was hitting him, and up until last year, when maybe in AAA, he hit a few lumps, and then, he gets to spring training, the job's his. There's no competition, and he's finally seen some adversity in the major leagues. Something that he never really had before. But he got to work with JT this time. I think that's helpful. I would make sure that JT, who's going to need more time off, so. You're probably going to see Marchand once a week and Stubbs once a week at this point while they have 3 catchers. I would make sure that JT is working with him behind the plate.
The catcher thing is always interesting because I think there's always the thought of, veteran batteries want to pitch together. They want to, like Zack Wheeler, I assume, kind of demands JT Realmuto. Maybe not in so many words, but I think in terms of like these guys have worked together so frequently over the last 6 seasons that when Zack Wheeler's on the mound, JT Realmuto is catching. I think the same can probably be said for Christopher Sanchez at this point. So the reality is if you're getting those 2 guys a game apiece, does it go to the young guy or does it go to the 2 veterans? And do you give Andrew Painter the opportunity to work with JT? It's an interesting dynamic, and it's an interesting question that I've really not thought about before. It's a good point by you. I wonder if they feel more comfortable going, okay, Aaron Nola, you've been around, you've been in the league for a long time. You've actually, if I remember correctly, there was a stint maybe over like a 2-year stretch where he pitched better with Garrett Stubbs behind the plate than with JT. And then I guess with Luzardo, maybe, whoever, if it's not Stubbs, it's Marchand, whichever of the 2 is not getting the start the other night. I wonder if that starts to be the case where JT starts with Sanchez, Wheeler, and Painter, and Stubbs and Marchand split Nola and Luzardo.
Yeah, very interesting point. I think back to this is before our time, but I know Steve Carlton insisted on having Tim McCarver behind the plate, even though they had Bob Boone, who was the preeminent catcher of the day, arguably, right? in the National League, perennial all-star. So yeah, that does happen. But in terms of Painter, he had his first couple starts with Realmuto. Then of course Realmuto goes out. Then I think we're seeing Realmuto finally settling back in, and so maybe he's got something more reliable. I'm just kind of going through Painter starts right now. He went to Marchand for his 4th start, and then after that JT was out. So anyway, yeah, and then he ended up being caught by Stubbs. So yeah, he hasn't had that consistency. So maybe with JT back, these couple last starts, hopefully he's going to start to see a little bit of that consistency with Realmuto behind the plate.
It was funny. I was trying to remember who it was. You bring up the Tim McCarver point. I was trying to remember who it was that was Tim Wakefield's personal catcher. And I believe it was Doug Mirabelli, who ended up having like a 10-year career because he could catch a knuckleball. I know it's a different situation, but like,
yeah, it was Doug Mirabelli.
Because he could catch the knuckleball, he basically had a standing contract with the Red Sox.
Didn't he leave the Red Sox and come back just for Tim Wakefield at one point?
I think he did, yes. All right, so with Andrew Painter now kind of in the rhythm a little bit more, I think that now, as you brought up, really the only point that, or the only point of contention in the rotation is Aaron Nola, who has had some really fine starts this year and has also had some really clunker starts this year so far. I was, kind of going back and tracking some of his starts and seeing some of his pitch counts and things like that. And somebody brought up a point on Twitter a couple weeks ago about the potential of maybe Aaron Nola limiting his fastball usage a little bit and kind of going to more of the like fastballs that move, aka the sinker and the cutter a little bit more. I know that it's hard to change your approach mid-season, but I wonder if that has any value to Aaron Nola to basically just throw everything with some semblance of movement.
A couple starts ago when he had his really good start, I thought that his strength in that start was that he was being a painter, like he was really painting around the strike zone.
Right.
And you know what? You have the ABS challenge, but guess what? You can run out of challenges pretty quickly if you're living like right on the edge, right? So, I would like to see him play with that a little bit more, because everybody jokes about the RAV forwarding is his home run inning. Obviously when he throws it right over the plate, it gets hit. So I think if he's got the command and can paint around the strike zone as he did 2 starts ago, I think he's on to something. So I'd like to see a little bit more with that.
So let's transition to the offense a little bit because you saw those numbers, and a 265 or excuse me, 250 team average is the fourth best or the sixth best, excuse me, since Don Mattingly has taken over. But to me, it seems like for the most part in this stretch, the productivity has been brought about by mostly left-handed hitters. I mean, when you think about the group, obviously Schwarber and Harper lead the way. Brandon Marsh has been really good for a majority of the season. But one guy that has really started to swing the bat well in the month of May is Bryson Stott. And these numbers are from before yesterday's game, so they're a little bit outdated. But here's Bryson Stott's May stats. A 254 average, which, for a guy that was hitting below 200 or below 220, excuse me, heading into the month, I'll certainly take that. The slug sitting nearly 600, the OPS nearly 900. And the number that jumps out to me is that 18 RBI total. Now, I know that, RBI are kind of, they're predicated on other guys being on base, but he's done a really nice job of taking advantage of it to the point where there's still 10 days left in May. And those 18 RBI are the most that he has had in a month in his career. And we still have 33% of the month left to go. I think it's been a really encouraging month for Bryson Stott.
Really has. And by the way, he did have another hit last night, so his average ticked up a little bit from your number there.
Now in the month.
Yep. So no, I didn't. He and Bohm, I think they're similar from my perspective in that they were always high contact hitters, and it just didn't make sense how poorly they were doing this year. So you had to think at some point it would come around and he would start making that contact again. But yeah, I didn't check after last night. I know for a while he was leading the league in RBI for the month of May. But you need that. You can't just have all the offense come from Schwarber and Harper. So, I mean, this has a lot to do with why they're winning. Those two bats slower in the lineup. Of course, Bohm now moved up in the lineup, making all the difference. So, and he's got a great glove to boot. So I like that he's going to start. Looks like he's going to play almost every day now. Getting some at bats against lefties. We'll see what he does with that. I mean, his splits kind of led that, but he's been hitting 316 against lefties this year. So in a limited action. So let's see a little bit more.
His OPS, the 18, he's now third. So Nick Kurtz and JJ Bleday have both passed him. Bleday had an RBI last night. They were tied heading into the night. But he's third in baseball. And Kyle Schwarber is still top 5, which obviously is something you and I talked about the last week, where he's got all these home runs, but he's not driving anybody in. And that's the fault of other guys around him. But even with that, he's still third or probably now fourth in baseball with RBI, the RBI total in the month of May. So you have 34 RBI from two guys, one that you expect to be in that conversation, one that you don't. And that doesn't include anything that Bryce Harper has done, which has been a stellar month of May in his own right.
Very, very true. I mean, I hope. By the way, we're waiting the lineup as of when we're recording this, so hopefully Schwarber is back today. I mean, you definitely felt his absence the last couple days. I mean, they did take one, lose one, but who knows? Could be a completely different game with Schwarber in the lineup. They only lost by 3 runs last night, so yeah, they're firing, but the problem is, as you said, it's only the lefties creating this offense right now.
So we can talk about the righties now because one has been good. You just mentioned him. Alec Bohm is having a much better month. And I think we all expected Bohm to be better than the 180 hitter or whatever it was that he was hitting through the month of April. But he's really swinging the bat well in the month of May. He's the third best OPS on the team in the month of May. Only Schwarber and Harper are better. He's starting to see the ball a little bit better, driving it to the gaps a little bit more. Not a guy that is ever going to be a long drag out on at bat type of hitter. That's just not the type of player he is. But when he's ambushing fastballs and doing it successfully, this is the type of month that Alec Bohm is still capable of having. Now, April was about, outside of Brandon Marsh going hitless in April last season, this was one of the worst Aprils I've seen from a Phillies hitter in a really long time. But the last 20 some odd days have been much more encouraging. Now, I don't know if he's going to get back to 250 or 260 on the year just because of the slow start, but if he could be a 240, 250 hitter by the time the season ends, that's a market improvement over what he was for the first month.
Yeah, last 15 days, 1.144 OPS. So so he's been coming up really, really big. I mean, kudos to Don Mattingly. That benching maybe just did actually clear his head. I mean, it's almost like you feel like a benching is punitive, but I was told don't even pick up a bat, just sit and watch. Seems to have made a difference.
Almost felt like the Dennis Rodman story where he was allowed to go to Vegas for 48 hours.
Oh my.
Well, maybe a little bit
benches
different.
are the same, but
but yeah, I mean, Bohn's swinging the bat really well, over the last couple of weeks. The one righty that I do have some concerns about, throughout the month of May has been Adolis Garcia. I mean, heading into last night's game, I think he was hitting about 185 in the month of May. He had 21 strikeouts heading into last night's game. He's not really driving the ball. The RBI numbers aren't there. That's kind of because he's not driving the ball. I think he only has 3 extra base hits this month, 1 home run. I know that he had that prolonged stretch of struggles. I think he was 0 for 27 or something along those lines. But it's been a really rough month for Adolis Garcia so far. I know he's still hitting the ball hard. His hard hit rates are good. His average exit velocities are good, but he's swinging and missing more than he did last year. His whiff rates are down. His K rates are down, or up, I guess I should say. Going in the wrong direction is what I'm trying to say. This has been a discouraging month for Adolis Garcia, as encouraging as Alec Bohm has been.
Yeah, 240 OPS in the month of May. that's even worse than Bohm's month of April, I think, or it was really rivaling that. You got to get more out of him. I mean, I think you're at the point now where you really need to really got to commit to Marsh every single day because you just can't afford to have the two of them there. I mean, do you put Marsh in right sometimes? Do you give Sosa some more outfield time and left? I mean, he's the only one left that you can really throw out there. I mean, if you're not going to, but again, why would you sit him against a righty? So I mean, against a lefty,
Right.
That's usually when they flip the platoons. So yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah, I think at this point you're right. You're facing a reality of either Brandon Marsh is going to have to face more lefties, or Edmundo Sosa is going to get starts in the outfield. Those are your two choices.
Yeah, I mean, and the reverse, he's kind of had reverse splits even before this year. Often hitting better against right-handed pitching than left-handed pitching. So this year, I mean, they're both not that much different. 200 against righties, 239 against lefties. OPS is actually way better against lefties this year, 756 to 559. But yeah, you gotta figure something out. I mean, part of the problem is the Phillies just don't have any depth at AAA. I mean, I think they went into the season, as we talked about before, thinking, well, Kemp's probably better than anybody we can grab. Okay, but when you've only added Adolis Garcia to the mix, I mean, they didn't even add any minor leaguer. Oh, I guess De La Cruz is an example of a minor leaguer that they added for potential depth, but he doesn't really seem like he's an option. So I don't really know what they can do other than just get to the trade deadline and then acquire some pieces.
So speaking of Kemp, last thing that we're going to get into today, Otto Kemp back up, Felix Reyes sent back down, playing the carousel game of right-handed bench bats. And I don't know, obviously Reyes was not swinging the bat particularly well. The Chris Sale home run was really cool, but really not a whole lot of production from him. Kemp, I guess, gives you a little bit of more flexibility of playing a couple of different positions. But now they're back to the original plan, which was Otto Kemp being your right-handed platoon piece against left-handed pitching. Maybe could play a little bit of third, but the options aren't ideal at this current moment.
No, and I would have favored them calling up Stuart Baroa, who can at least play some center field. I mean, they don't really have a backup center fielder. Yeah, you could throw Marsh. Actually, Marsh has been better there this year than he's been in the past. But I'd rather see Baroa. Give yourself a switch hitter who can play center. It gives you some more options, especially. I don't know. I don't think the Kemp versatility is all that helpful right now. I mean, they can. I mean, with Garrett Stubbs on your roster, I guess he's your backup third baseman / going to play first base the other night if necessary. Left field. I don't know. I mean, if you got to carry the third catcher, for this backup, I don't need to worry about someone else playing multiple positions just in case of emergency, because Stubbs is your emergency player on the roster right now.
Now, I know you've mentioned Baroa a couple times before. I genuinely don't know the answer to this question. Is he on the 40 at this current moment?
He is.
Okay, so they wouldn't have to make a corresponding roster move.
Correct.
I'm surprised then. I guess maybe do they want to continue to see him get every day at bats in AAA?
I suppose. I mean, but this is his third year AAA. So last year, Baroa kind of bounced around 3 different organizations. Phillies grabbed him this year. He finished last year with Nashville, started this year with Nashville before getting cut. I don't know. It seems like now would be the time to try him, because you want to know what you have before you get to the deadline. And I don't know. I don't think that Kemp lit the world on fire either, that he necessarily deserved to have that promotion. So I think It was more that Reyes was sitting around not doing anything than it was that Kemp earned it. So I would have rather seen a center fielder. So with Baroa, they gave him center field at AAA because that's where the Phillies need the depth right now. And I don't know. He's got an 817 OPS at AAA. I would have given him a shot over Kemp personally.
So I know we spent the last couple of minutes, kind of talking about some of the negatives, but it's been vastly positive over the last 2 or 3 weeks at this point. An opportunity today to win their 7th consecutive series, to take 2 out of 3 against the Cincinnati Reds. As you said, we don't know the lineup just yet. Maybe Schwarber is back after dealing with a little bit of an illness the last couple of days. But this was the pocket that you talked about earlier in the season of like kind of your get right pocket of games. And so far, it's not only just been get right, it's been get back. They're 25-24 now. They're on the cusp of the playoff picture with 100+ games left to play. I asked for 40-40. If they could get back to 40-40, they have a shot. They not only got back to 500, they're now above 500, well before that 40-40 mark.
Yeah, I remember you saying that I was shooting a little too high by thinking the Phillies could be over 500 by the end of May.
Lifeless.
Yeah. I mean, you knew they were better than they were. I mean, you don't go from 96 games to what you saw at 9-19, right? I mean, it just had to be better. So, but yeah, I again, the Zack Wheeler edition just changed everything. I think that mattered more than the manager getting fired.
I would tend to agree with you. I think that this rotation is now set the way that it should be. You've got 4 guys right now that you're feeling really good about. One that is a veteran that I guess you could trust when he's on. So that's it's an ask that a lot of teams don't have the luxury of. I mean, you look around the league and starting pitching depth and things like that. There's not many teams have at least 4 starters that they can count on.
Yeah, but let's be honest though, the Phillies are one finger blister away from Alan Ronhell pitching and then having nobody behind him. So that remains a concern. The Phillies need to find a way to get some depth. I don't know if they should be making waiver claims, just see whenever somebody gets waived, just to see if you can do better at AAA. But that does concern me a little bit though, the lack of depth.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it is paper thin. There's no question about it. And I think you're right. You are an injury away from having nothing. So as long as it holds, you're feeling pretty good.
Yeah, I mean this rotation will win if given a full season, 90 games by accident. I said that going into last year. I think that that's very true today.
So at this point, you probably, you correct a little bit. Like there is still a feel like this could be an 85 to 87 win team, and that gets you to the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, it will really depend on what they do with the deadline. I think those moves. I think this deadline is going to be really critical. Last year, they they traded for the big closer. This year, they got to get the big bat. I mean, I think that's going to be what the difference maker is, and this season could come down to how they correct their flaws in the roster at the trade deadline.
Sure. Anything else before we get out of here for the afternoon?
Just it's amazing though. The Phillies have picked up a total of 2.5 games on the Braves through all this play. So Braves still dealing with some little extra.
Insane.
Drake Baldwin's out now. They've been, Acuna came back and then Drake Baldwin went out. So they've been still managing some injuries, and of course Sean Murphy, their other catcher, also on the injured list. So they're brave. The Phillies could creep up a little bit, while they're a little scuffling with the injuries, but the Braves are in a really good position right now. So.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Phillies catch the Braves. I think that would have to depend on the head-to-head play that comes all the way in September. So again, get it right at the deadline, and maybe you can pick up some games towards the end of the year. But in the meantime, just win, because this Braves team is pretty good.
There's a lot of argument going on in social media the last couple of days about this exact scenario where interleague play and playing everybody now has watered down, if you will, your games against your divisional opponents, where you play 2 series against the Braves early in the year, they kick your butt, and then you don't play them again until September. If you played them right now, you're a much better team than when you played them 3 weeks ago. If you play them in September, who knows? You know what I mean? You bring up injury concerns, or maybe a team starts to scuffle or whatever, right? Like it is strange to see, the divisional games get so spread out because you are playing all of these interleague games now.
Yeah, and how about how the Phillies have done against the Mets so far? Oh, wait, they don't play for another month. They're still a month away from facing the Mets. A month. What's it? June 26th is the first time the Phillies face the Mets. I mean, that's
crazy.
Insane.
I mean, you're talking about 3 months into the season, perhaps playing your biggest rival for the first time.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this. I would have balanced the schedule and also just focused perhaps on a natural. I figured it out years ago, and it's not. I don't think it's on my site. My old site doesn't exist anymore where I spelled it out. But
could you imagine looking at the NHL and being like, yeah, first Flyers Penguins game is going to be in late January? You're like, wait, what?
Yeah,
it's strange.
They need to play their division more. I
agree.
I don't think they need to play every team every year, but focus on the natural rivalries. Do the one division matchups. I think you can balance the schedule.
All right, that's going to pretty much wrap things up for us on this episode of the Running Back Podcast. A big thank you to everybody who hangs out with us on our YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button on your way out and smash the thumbs up button as well. If you're listening on any of the audio-only platforms, you can leave a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate it. For my co-host and buddy today, Frank Klose, not just today, every day that we do this show, today specifically, though, Frank Klose, I'm Tyler Zulli saying thanks so much for hanging out with us. We'll be back next week with the next edition of the Running Back Podcast. Talk to you then. See ya.